Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the Nashville astrology and the Nashville, Tennessee tornado. Some of you may know that tornado touched down in Nashville and hit some other areas in the United States March 3rd, 2020. And the thing, and I'm used approximate time of 1 a.m. for this tornado, this event chart. Now, first of all, I want to just reach out and offer my condolences and prayers to the families of the victims. And this is something that is really heartfelt around the nation. Even Donald Trump, who has been accused really of, I don't know the exact words people have used, of being rather cold, callous, or even undemonstrative because he didn't really show a lot of emotion as far as the coronavirus goes, or maybe he hasn't shown much empathy toward the people that have suffered because of that. But the thing about it is he did reach out, I believe through social media, to reach out to the families of those victims. So it's not, at least through social media, he might have done this more publicly. I'm not sure, but I know he reached out somehow. But anyway, well, first thing off is as far as this the event chart goes for this tornado that touched down in Nashville and again hit some other areas. The thing that I noticed when just looking at the chart in general, majority of these planets are on the bottom half of the chart, and you have 9 of the 10 planets fall on the bottom half of the chart. I used, and the thing about that is you have that plus you have nine of the 12 major astrological influences in feminine signs. And when I'm referring to the major astro influences, I'm talking about the 10 astrological planets, the ascendant, and the midheavens. So it's more pessimistic energy than optimism. This is something which obviously caused a lot of people to be very downtrodden, very negative, very pessimistic, very skeptical. But at the same time, it's also very introverted, introspective energy. When this touched down approximately 1 a.m. in Nashville, Tennessee, I'm sure there were some people that might have actually been sleeping. And basically, when I say comatose, I mean dead to the world. Basically, figuratively speaking, they were basically in their I call it the comatose state when you are asleep and you're not coherent or cognizant. And you have this thing happen too. I mean, of course, you have it at the dead of night, early in the morning. This was something when I looked at. One thing that stood out is that, I mean, not only did you have the majority, the preponderance of planets on the bottom half of the chart, the sector, the fourth quadrant in the chart is empty, and that tells me. I mean, I'm not saying there was no selfless humanitarian energy in connection with this event, but it was probably very hard to express it because you had a lot of these planets in the first quadrant of the chart, and that could indicate a lot more egocentric energy, more energy connected with self-aggrandizement, more self-protective energy. 4 of those planets fall in Capricorn, and Capricorn can be about taking care of their interests taking precedence over others, and being in more self-protective energy. Now, in this chart as well, one of the things that I noticed, you had Mercury in Pisces, and it was retrograde at the time at 0 degrees. Now, when you're talking about Mercury in terms of meteorology and astrology, Mercury can be connected with the wind. Pisces can be very chaotic energy and tumultuous energy. You also have it retrograde and moving around in a way that's uncharacteristic of this wind. You had the 4th house cusp at 29 degrees Pisces. That could be very tumultuous energy in terms of the home life, and something that was very tumultuous, very powerful. You have 29 degrees at Pisces. 29 degrees can symbolize endings. in astrology? Did some people have an abrupt end come to maybe their fantasy home, a dream home that they dreamed about? Maybe some people were still in the process of working on a home. It's also the 29th degree in Pisces can also be connected with murder and suicide. Now, this was not murder or suicide in association with this event, but people were killed as a result of this. This was endings as a result of very chaotic, tumultuous energy. And it's also 29 degrees Pisces in astrology. It's conjunct the fixed star sheet. I mean, and that could indicate something connected with a lot of adversity, tribulation, something catastrophic. Going back to the Mercury in Pisces retrograde, there was no major adverse aspects to it. If you want to say, you look at as far as the planets go, there were no major adverse aspects to it, and it didn't even make an adverse aspect to the ascendant. The midheaven, I calculated the chart. I got it said 29 degrees Virgo. It's an inconjunct, but still not probably as severe as a square or opposition. I wouldn't see it as severe. I see an inconjunct that could be adverse and could be major, though, as terms of an aspect. But anyway, you basically, at least virtually, had no resistance to this energy astrologically. And the thing about this too, you also had another thing that I noticed too is that 6 of the 12 major astrological influences were in mutable signs. And when you have that energy, mutable energy can be very intimidated easily. And in terms of people in astrology, natal charts, it could be a person that could be easily coerced. But in this case, it could be energy where people were very easily frightened, easily put in a state of trepidation, where a lot of worry and anxiety took place. And mutable energy could be very mercurial and changeable. And you had people, probably because of this situation, sadly experience very exceptional wide mood swings as a result of this catastrophic event. And the thing about this too is in this chart there's also a mutable T-square configuration, which consists of an opposition between Sagittarius rising and the moon in Gemini, and that energy is squared by the Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Mutable T-squares in astrology in general can produce a lot of consternation, exasperation, much adversity. There can be a lot of obstructions and obstacles. And the thing about this is the fact that it's in mutable signs, though, could be something where you're talking about a lot of energy that can create a lot of vacillation, a lot of worry, even procrastination, a lot of anxiety, restlessness, ambivalence, mercurial energy. Looking at the opposition from the moon in Gemini to the Sagittarius ascendant, breaking down, dissecting this mutable T-square configuration, well, that can manifest in a multitude of ways. The moon in Gemini in opposition to the Sag ascendant in the chart can indicate really like this perpetual tug of war between the exuberance for doing things for the self, which is the first house, expansive energy for the self projected very outwardly, but at the same time, the moon in Gemini in the 7th house with this opposition, perhaps the emotional need or unconscious need to do manifold things for others, to spread oneself too thin for others, perhaps as well, and also, and as a result, you have the Sun in Pisces conjunct Neptune. This is squaring that energy, and it's the point of that overcompensation as the result of that opposition. And given that we're talking about the Sun in Pisces conjunct Neptune, well, Sun in Pisces can be about that could result in a focus on idealism, even spirituality. More people may have been really decided to pray as a result of this situation. But the problem is you have Neptune conjunct the Sun. This is also where it could have added to some spirituality as a result of this, and really pray what needs to be done. Am I going to be more self-serving, or am I going to be Mr. and Mrs. Philanthropic and help others? And I think that's how a lot of that energy may have panned out. Could the Neptune, maybe by the Sun, might have also added some imagination to this, and maybe even more altruism, I would say, as well. And another way this mutable T-square configuration could have panned out, when you're talking about Gemini, an adversarial aspect to Sagittarius. Sagittarius can be about speaking the veritable truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, their truth. Qualities projected outwardly, given it's the ascendant, the opposition to the Moon in Gemini. Moon in Gemini might more feel like just saying what people would like to hear. And what happens is, as a result, you have the Sun in Pisces as the overcompensation point. The focus perhaps on isolation, escapism, seclusion, solitude, maybe not being able to make a decision as to what to really say to people in terms of, in some cases, maybe injuries to this catastrophe. And Neptune energy could add more confusion to this, I believe. The fact that you have Neptune conjunct the Sun in this, as far as this goes. But looking at the Sun and Neptune by itself, though, and you're looking at this could be, Sun in Pisces especially, could be about diminished vitality and energy. And you're taught, well, Sun in Pisces in general can be somewhat lethargic, and the energy level is not exactly robust in Pisces. You have the conjunction from Neptune. It could indicate some dissolving and dissipation of that energy. Now, you also have, at this time, I thought was interesting as well, you have Uranus in Taurus is a singleton. That was the only planet that was in a fixed sign at the time of this tornado. Now, that could indicate it could stand out a little bit more. I would say, especially Uranus and Taurus, this could be where tornado activity can be more prevalent and prominent in the fifth house, which corresponds with Leo. That's dominant energy, and this is something. Of course, the singleton, I believe, did make this stand out, may have made this energy more prominent at this time. Hold on a moment, people. Now, Nashville did experience, obviously some transits to their natal chart because of this. Now, you had the transit Sun making a long conjunction to Nashville's natal Pluto at the time. Now, when you have the Sun conjunct Pluto, sometimes this could indicate an transit aspect of the end of a life, because the Sun in astrology can be connected with vitality and energy and life. And Pluto, of course, could be about death and obliteration. And given that this was Pisces energy, I think a lot of this energy may have been somewhat unseen. It caught a lot of people off guard, by surprise. I believe the fact that this actually transpired at night. Pisces energy could be very nebulous and unclear and obscure, and I think maybe people did not really see this energy really the way it could have been seen, to maybe to actually where you would have actually had more people would have survived and gotten out of this unscathed, as opposed to either dying or being seriously injured. You had like over 150 people, I believe, hospitalized as a result of this, and about 25 people perished as a result of this tornado. Some other aspects, what I was looking at, an energy which could indicate how this energy, where people did not, were kind of difficulty seeing this coming. The Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Now, Mercury can be connected with eyesight. Mercury retrograde in Pisces at the time, the transiting planet at the time of this event. Mercury can be about eyesight. Not only you have it in its detriment and fall in Pisces, it's also retrograde going. That energy could be going the other way. You're talking about it also at this time in Pisces, energy could be nebulous and unclear anyway. Then you have the Sun conjunct Neptune at the time. Neptune on the Sun can sometimes, I would say, that could be a result of really dissolving that vision, so to speak, figuratively speaking, at least. Some cases it can be literal. In this case, more figurative, and being in Pisces especially, again, not to be redundant, but Pisces energy could be very nebulous and unclear. Then you have, at the time that this event took place as well, you had the transit Neptune in opposition to Nashville's natal sun in Virgo. And that makes it harder to see. You might have difficulty seeing something coming at this time, because the sun, let me elaborate on the sun. The sun in astrology either rules the left or right eye depending on gender. At this time as well, the moon was also square the sun, and the moon can be is either the left or the right eye depending on gender. Moon was in Gemini. Some people may be flippant and say, well, could that be double vision? Well, well, not really in this particular case. It just it really mean, I don't know if people were actually would be seeing double, but I think what it is basically, when you have all this energy, and it's this mutable energy again, it just generally caused a lot more anxiety, a lot more nervousness, frantic energy, more so than the typical catastrophe. And I don't really have too much more to say, as far as this goes. The transit, another thing too I want to get is that transit Pluto and transit Jupiter at the time were conjunct, or at least we're making long conjunctions, if you will, to the natal Nashville Chiron. And of course, Chiron can be about wounds, could be about suffering, sometimes be about physical pain, could be about tribulation. And you have transit Pluto hitting the Nashville's natal Chiron. Pluto, of course, could be about death and destruction, and really very despondent, melancholy energy, something that would make people, you're adding very depressive energy to this, people feeling more melancholy and despondent than the typical destructive, situation. And you also have, and then you have the transit Jupiter at the time, making long conjunction, if you will, to the natal Chiron of Nashville. That could actually, as I've spoken about in previous videos, Jupiter could be rather paradoxical, could be very strongly benign, benevolent, but it could also have a proclivity to enlarge and expand. This can enlarge, expand depressive wounds, and even wounds, so to speak, figuratively speaking, connected with buildings and structures, since we're talking about Capricorn. You also had in this event chart, Chiron, transit Chiron in Aries was in the 4th house. And you're talking about Chiron in Aries could be about, real physical, real wounds connected with something of a volatile, truculent nature. The 4th house is the home. And this also, I think, might have caused some disturbance in one's emotional security. You also had the Black Moon Lilith in Aries involved. This is could be about a, sudden or, unveiling or revelation of something very dark, nefarious energy as well. And of course, being in Aries, something, very volatile, very truculent, and being in the 4th house again, which could impact one's emotional security, their home life, their feeling of safety and security. So there's really not much more you want to get at as far as this goes. That's pretty much it, people. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.